this is me in my red superhero tights. That's right. In my volunteer time, I wear red tights. But don't worry, there's lots of layers under there. Captain Kindness, as I'm affectionately called, flies into schools, elementary schools in particular, as well as summer camps, teaching kids how to lead by being kind. I have devoted my life to helping individuals, couples, and organizations improve their relationships because I believe that human connection is the greatest resource that we have. People like Jen taught me that. My nonprofit once said goodbye to Jen, who was a wonderful part-time staff person who stayed with us far longer than she had planned to. With tears in her eyes and a quivering voice, Jen stayed after a meeting one night and slowly slid her resignation letter across the table, lamenting what had been a very difficult decision. Now, I was about to ask Jen how in the world she stayed with us so long, given her other full-time job, her busy family life, and her mountain of volunteer work that she does in the community. But then she answered my question for me. Along with her letter, she made one final request. Would it be okay, she said, if I kept coming to team meetings? Relationships are the most neglected, most powerful resource that we have. Not money, not perks, not an office massage chair, not a fancy coffee machine. People will work longer and for less pay if they feel like they truly belong. Building solid workplace relationships today in this virtual or remote work-from-home climate is incredibly hard. Relating to coworkers more through video call than in person is just not the same. I mean, let's be honest, folks. Half the time, we're not even sure if the people on the other end of that call are even wearing pants. Can we admit that? Now, I often work with organizations who have decided to offer virtual or hybrid work options because they want to stay competitive in the job market. But now they're struggling with relationships and climate and collaboration. What can we do is their question that they ask all the time. A software executive told me that he's not sure his organization will be around in 10 years if something doesn't change. He said, we hire people to work from home, but we lose them when a better paying job pops up at their screen that they can do in the same home office. This can't go on. A financial executive told me that her firm could lose billions of dollars if they can't find a way to help remote staff collaborate more effectively. People don't communicate like they used to, she said. They don't collaborate and solve problems like they once did when they're all together in the same space. What can we do? They focus on their own projects, but they miss the big picture. Hey, the technology that allows us to live and work and learn from home or remotely, it is incredible. It's sci-fi stuff. But is it possible that we dove headfirst into this virtual era with a flawed understanding of our human nature? How many of you have heard of Robert Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Show of hands. Does it bring back any Psych 101 nightmares for any of you? This classical understanding of human motivation declares that we must first meet our most basic needs like air and food and water before we can move up to be motivated to pursue higher order needs like meaning and self-actualization and purpose. And intuitively, it just makes sense. I mean, let's just say that you decided to go take a refreshing swim in the Red River. Sounds great, right? But you don't swim well. So you start to go down. Your life is now flashing before your eyes. Suddenly, someone shows up on the shoreline with a cheeseburger in one hand, and you're hungry, and a rope in the other. How many of you are going to want them to throw you the rope? How many of you need professional help? I just want the burger and I want to die happy, right? No matter how hungry you are going to beg for the rope because you need air before you can even think about food. Now, let's say the situation changes and you are safely pulled to the shoreline, and now that person still has a cheeseburger in one hand, but in the other hand, they have season tickets to your favorite local hockey team. And if that's not your thing, a signed copy of Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. Now, if you're starving, if you're really hungry, you're going to beg for the burger before you even consider the emotional fulfillment of those other two options, because needs in this sense are hierarchical. You need food before you can think about those other options. Now, notice that in this paradigm, relationships fall sort of in the middle. Do you notice that? And they become a priority only after our bodily and safety needs are met. Maslow's theory has been developed widely and applied all throughout society to education, social policy, social work, and to management training, guiding practitioners to prioritize physical needs in a primary sense. It even shows up in Gallup's very popular staff survey tool, which recommends that and hints that workers need the raw materials to do their jobs before they can fully pursue meaningful relationships. But Maslow's critics, and there are critics, Maslow's critics remind us that needs are not quite so hierarchical or linear, that they tend to overlap. In particular, relationships tend to bleed into every area. I mean, when a baby is born, it doesn't check its own airway. It doesn't go hunting for its food. It relies upon a medical staff for air and safety. It relies upon a loving parent for food. From day one, babies rely on relationships. Similarly, in all of human history, tribal cultures didn't go hunting alone and come back to their private kitchens to cook. They hunted together. They cooked together. They farmed together. They lived together. They met their most basic needs through the superpower of relationships. Humans have always collaborated for our survival. It's our jam. Relationships are the greatest superpower we have. And for our organizations to survive and thrive, we have to prioritize relationships in these three important ways. And I'm going to close with this. First, whatever size organization or team you're a part of, move relationships to the top of your agenda. Don't skip past connection time for tasks. The next virtual meeting you have or the next in-person meeting you have, try throwing this nugget out there. Say, tell us one thing that happened to you this weekend. People are going to smile. They're going to lean forward. And they're going to talk about that third-degree sunburn they got at the lake, or that epic fail helping Billy with his science project. People are going to laugh, and they're going to learn about one another as humans, which then builds the trust that we need to work together. Connection time is not wasted time, so move it to the very top of your agenda. Make sure it happens. Secondly, we need to celebrate and thank people like crazy. People need to be seen in our workplaces. People need to be validated. WorkHuman found that large corporations who prioritized recognition saved billions of dollars related to turnover alone. My team, our weekly staff meeting centers upon one agenda item: celebrating the wins from the past week. People can't wait to show up. They'll show up early. They cannot wait to talk about their accomplishments, their successes, to brag about the feats of the week behind them or the great things a teammate did, and that leads to all kinds of recognition and praise. It's a love fest. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a little relationally challenged, and I'm a little bit more task-oriented. So I was worried at first that prioritizing the time for just celebrating wins and that touchy-feely stuff, I was worried that it would get in the way of accomplishing our tasks and goals and planning and organizing. But just the opposite happened. Our agenda items came up as we celebrated. We actually got more done while we celebrated. You will accomplish your agenda without even trying. Your team will be more engaged and they will love it. So celebrate and thank people like crazy. Third and finally, we need to care about people outside of work. If someone on your team is going through something in their personal life, there's a tendency to say, well, that's personal. But we need to remember that this is actually a huge opportunity, whatever they're going through, whether it's a birth, a death, an illness, or it could be anything, losing a finger in the garbage disposal, whatever it is. These are huge opportunities to cultivate a sense of belonging on our teams, to value people apart from their work product. My team nominated Cindy. We appointed her to coordinate care for employees in crisis. She volunteered to do it. She loves it. After she gets permission from the individual in crisis, she reaches out to the team to let us know about the situation, and she creates a meal schedule so that we drop meals off for the person in their home or have them delivered if the person is working remotely. When we treat humans like humans outside of work, it changes how we work. We live in a touchless world that atomizes individuals and tells us that we can be perfectly fulfilled looking at spreadsheets on a screen in our basement all alone in our work office while our groceries get quietly, silently, and anonymously delivered to our front doors. But what if we decided to be more human than that? Will you give your teammates permission to be human? By taking the needed time for relationships, to bond, to celebrate and thank them, and to care for them outside of work. Will you give yourself permission to be human? By treating your relationships as if they are a primary need, not a secondary need. Because when we learn how to harness the shocking superpower of relationships in this disconnected world, something beautiful happens. We start to feel human again. Thank you all.